Tip number one, go to a website or a shop with a return policy. For example, keh.com is a great seller of used camera gear. I've purchased cameras from them before. These guys are in the US. They have really good deals and the conditions are pretty accurate. So when they say something is in excellent condition, it is actually in excellent condition. 180-day warranty, or if there's an equivalent in your country, can give you a lot of peace of mind. You get the better value with the used without the hassle and potential complications that you do when buying in person. eBay these days, it's associated with risky business, both for buyers and sellers, but actually eBay is very friendly towards buyers. So if you're buying gear, eBay is usually on your side. In fact, sellers are complaining more and more that eBay is taking the side of the buyer. But there's certainly buyer protection on eBay. Don't forget to support your local camera store. Okay, we've gone here to the city of London on Google Maps. There's so many camera stores that get overlooked. It's not an easy time for them. But if we're buying used gear, there are a lot of great used camera stores all over. You'll pay a bit more in store as opposed to buying in person, but you do get the peace of mind that it was probably inspected by an actual human being and the camera is probably functional and you can try it out. Tip number two, the cheapest deals go local. Okay, if you want to actually save the most money, you should buy from individuals. There's always good old Craigslist.com, and you can search for cameras and other things like that and see a whole bunch of deals in your area. In our case, in Canada, we like to use a hipster version of Craigslist called Kijiji, and I'll show you guys how to find great deals on these websites in just a couple minutes. But I also want to point out there's also Facebook Marketplace. Don't forget to check those too. Tip number three, consider buying Canon or Nikon. I don't particularly have a brand loyalty to Canon or Nikon, but it just so happens that Canon and Nikon have by far the most listings available and the most volume of used gear. So it makes it a buyer's market when you're buying Canon or Nikon. If we go on the classifieds and search for something like Olympus camera, we're going to get 147 results. And by the way, this includes people who've just put the Olympus keyword in there and also includes film cameras. But if we search for something like Nikon camera, 500 over 500 results, guys. Let's try Canon. Canon with 890 results. So Canon and Nikon, again, it depends on your local market, but usually there's at the highest volume of used cameras and lenses and accessories to choose from. So how do you actually narrow it down? So the first thing I do, I only look at listings with images. So if you have that option on your local classified site, do so. Next, the price. We want to adjust the price so you filter out all the people putting $1 pricing to appear at the top. So let's say something that's at least $50, and these are Canadian dollars. Apply some kind of price filter. We've reduced it from 890 to 509 ads. And the reason, guys, why I just searched for Canon camera and not something more specific like Canon DSLR or a Canon digital camera is because sometimes, believe it or not, people will literally list a DSLR and not mention the word DSLR in the listing. Okay, so just to capture everything that's possible, that's what we do. Unless you know the exact model of camera that you're interested in, you're going to have to manually look through all 509 listings. It will be a bit of a learning process initially, as you have to wade through hundreds of listings to find something that's good. You'll see some bad deals. People obviously trying to sell something for much more than it's actually worth. I think the cheapest camera that I would consider recommending to people would be the Canon S100, the PowerShot S100, or the S95, that line of compact cameras by Canon. Certainly nothing less capable than that. This is interesting. Look at this, Canon D40 40D digital camera, detailed description, Nikon D40 40D with extra filter. I'm quite curious what's going on here. What is this amazing listing? Okay, it's a Nikon camera. They've labeled it Canon. See, guys, see what I mean? People just don't care. I mean, it's fine. Maybe it's not worth their time to do this accurately, but a lot of people will skip over this listing because what is this? Um, Turns out this is a Nikon D40 listed for 60 Canadian. Is not a bad deal. I think the D40 is a lot of fun, actually. Maybe this camera even has a low shutter count. We don't know anything about this camera right now, other than it comes with an extra filter. Okay, guys, filters, I wouldn't ascribe any value to them. You know, people try to include a bunch of accessories to try and increase the value. Most filters are garbage that are included in these listings, unless it's a name brand like Hoya or K&F or B&W, circular polarizer or something like that. I don't get too excited about the filters. Okay, guys, here we have our first potentially interesting listing, Canon XTI, well-loved digital camera for sale. Well-loved usually means they've taken it to hell and back. Now, occasionally you'll see like pawn shops or actual shops trying to sell things on the classifieds. I wouldn't bother. Look at this Canon Rebel XTI with a lens. So same price, 100 Canadian dollars. You could either get the XTI or the XTI with a lens. So you guys have to always make sure you check out the listings. Sometimes there are better deals than others. Okay, nevertheless, we plow on. Oh, check this out, guys. Canon Rebel XT. So this is actually a worse camera selling for more money. Because the prices are all over the place with these classifieds listings. 30D is selling for 150, and then I saw a listing for a 40D, which is a much better camera, for 120. And 40D is a great camera. If the shutter count is low, I think this is quite a deal. 20D for 150. Okay, people were just losing it. So again, if you know what you're buying ahead of time, the process is much easier, and I will recommend some cameras at the end. But this is roughly the process you have to go through. Unfortunately, it's a bit annoying, but you know, you only have to do this once. What you can quickly do is just to get a ballpark idea of how much a camera should cost. Here we have a T3. I don't know how much a T3 is worth. We go to eBay, Canon T3 camera body, and click on buy it now. So we skip all the auctions and we sort by price plus shipping lowest first. Okay, and we scroll past the various body caps. And this camera seems to be priced around 150 US dollars. So the absolute cheapest listings are about 140, 150 US dollars, which makes this not bad at all. Okay, so this is actually a pretty good deal right here. Rebel T3, and it's not a bad camera at all. If you want to get into video, I would recommend stepping up to a T3i, but certainly nothing wrong with a Canon T3. 664 shutter count, guys. That is practically zero. So this is quite the deal. Even includes a bag. Actually, camera looks like it's been well taken care of. Now, sometimes, you know, you get impressed by nice looking photos of camera gear. I wouldn't put too much value on that. Sometimes are completely crappy photos of products that are actually in mint condition. So you never know. What's much more important for me, guys, is filtering out the psychos. I don't want to deal with psychos, and there are a lot of psychos on these classifieds websites. So you have to always be careful so you don't encounter a psycho. So if their description is already very angry, it says things like "don't waste my time," I usually don't bother with them. But here on Kijiji, you have the option to send someone a message if you're interested. And usually, what I like to say is, "I'm interested in this camera." And well, in this case, they provided the shutter count. But if they hadn't provided the shutter count, I would ask them, "Do you know roughly what the shutter count of the camera is?" And then you go from there. If you're buying beginner gear, I say go under 10,000 shutter count. So camera's taken under 10,000 photos. But if it's a professional camera body, like a full frame Nikon or Canon or Pentax, then up to 30,000, 50,000 is, I think, completely fine, because those cameras are rated much higher shutter counts than that. I mean, it's not the end of the world if the shutter goes down. But keep in mind, it's about a $300, $400 repair, depending on your local repair shop, and shipping both ways. Number 6, to kit or not to kit. Sometimes you'll actually see people selling entire bundles of cameras and lenses and all that stuff. Let me see if we can find. Okay, look at this, guys. Here we have a bundle. Someone is selling a Canon T4i bundle. Great set for the someone looking to learn photography includes a 24 millimeter 2.8 pancake lens. Actually, guys, this is a great lens. It is a pretty awesome lens. It's one of these tiny pancake lenses that is actually optically quite nice. Wait, let me just get this straight. He is selling a Canon T4i with a 24 millimeter lens, which, by the way, guys, is worth about 200 Canadian if I'm not mistaken. And this person is selling that lens with a Canon T4i. There's some minor scuff marks on the back of the LCD, but it's flipped 99% of the time. You never see it. Includes a flash as well. Okay, I think this is a pretty good deal. Honestly, even if you don't need the lens, you can just resell the lens and you end up with a really cheap camera. But occasionally, if you see a bundle priced at like $1,000 with entry-level cameras, you have to be wary just to make sure that you're not getting ripped off. Number 7, how to test used gear. I actually have a video exactly about this, so I go over exactly how to test out a new camera, including its exterior, buttons and controls and dials, and also how to test its functionality really quickly in 10 minutes on the spot. But even before you guys test out used gear, even before you meet the person, make sure you get the shutter count again, and if possible, it's a nice to have, ask them for a recent photo that they've taken with the camera. And if they actually go the extra mile and send you a file, like a raw file or a JPEG of a recent photo they've taken, it probably means they're serious. Okay, tip number 8. GAS in the world of photography refers to gear acquisition syndrome. And when you start shopping for used camera gear or cameras in general, before you know it, you may end up with a whole shelf of them. I always caution people, be careful. Don't just buy cameras for no reason. It's much easier to buy a camera than it is to sell it down the line. So unless you want to end up with a whole bunch of cameras that are barely getting used, try to control yourself. Tip number 9, negotiations. So first of all, it's a buyer's market. We saw 890 different Canon listings. So all these people are trying to sell their camera, and fewer people are buying cameras. So it's actually in your power right now. I don't really like it when people lowball, so I don't lowball for no reason. But if you think the price should be lower, feel free to reach out and suggest something like at least 15-20% lower to see if the seller will bite. Certainly the worst that can happen is they can say no. And this goes also for eBay. You can make an offer here. Certainly no harm in trying something that's 20% off. Well, again, worst cases, they'll decline your offer. Now, when it comes to eBay sellers, by the way, guys, forgot to mention at the beginning, sellers have a feedback percentage on eBay. And though 98.5% positive feedback sounds pretty good, like if I got 98.5% on all my tests in school, I wouldn't be making random YouTube videos. But I go for something that's at least 99%. Some people actually go only for sellers with above a 99.5%, but 99% is my personal cutoff. So I only want to deal with professional sellers that actually list the item that's being sold and ship you the correct item. Now, obviously, it's going to be a dice roll if you're buying like $2 gray market, third-party counterfeit lens caps. Then okay, you can maybe accept a lower feedback rating for some really cheap item. But if it's an expensive item like a camera or a high-end lens, I go for sellers with at least 99%. Remember, guys, everything can be negotiated. Life in general is just one big negotiation. Finally, guys, there are so many cameras. According to DP Review, there have been over 2,400 digital cameras released in total. But I can give you guys some basic recommendations. Compact pocketable cameras, I think the RX100 Mark 1 and 2 are pretty good value. Now, RX100s go all the way to number 7 these days. I think there's like a number 8 coming out soon. I have a whole video about the RX100 if you're interested. But the Mark 1 is available. I see them for $180 and the Mark 2 for $220. Mark 2 is just going to be slightly more improved, slightly newer. The Ricoh GR is not for everybody, but it's actually one of my favorite travel cameras or compact cameras in general. Find the Ricoh GR for $380. Now be careful when looking for the Ricoh GR because there's so many different variants. You want the one that's 16.2 megapixels with an APS-C size sensor. Okay, then we have another interesting choice here, the Olympus Tough TG4. If you're looking for a super tough camera that's dust-proof, splash-proof, freeze-proof, something to put in your kayak, Olympus Tough cameras will generally get the job done. You can even take them snorkeling. The Tough cameras, they keep releasing new ones, like the TG5 and TG6 are out, which makes the TG4 quite great value on the used market at $280 these days. Mirrorless cameras. Okay, I mean, there's so many mirrorless cameras, guys. Again, these are just some ideas for you guys. The XT20 is a nice, very compact, quite sexy looking, actually, Fuji mirrorless camera, which are available for $440. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but you do get 4K video. You do get a mic port on the camera itself. XT2. Now, this is a real beast of a camera. I mean, you could shoot with an XT2 and be satisfied for life. It's weather resistant. It's a professional body. Again, it shoots 4K video. It has a microphone port, and it's available for $560, which is a killer deal. You know, you also have to budget for the Fuji lenses, which are not as cheap as maybe some used Nikon or camera lenses, but they are optically pretty good. So if you're looking to build a camera system, don't blow all your money on a camera. I always keep saying this. Maybe get a cheaper used camera and then save your money for nice lenses. So an XT2 is $560. Now we have the X100S. The X100S is that fixed 35mm compact camera, just $500. That is a lot of money for a fixed lens compact, but the quality, the output of these cameras is there, and it also happens to be another very sexy looking camera, so potentially check it out. Okay, so with Olympus, basically we're going from least professional to most professional. So the EM10 is kind of the consumer lineup, the EM5 is the in-between prosumer, and the EM1 is a very professional type of device. So EM10 Mark II is a great travel camera. It looks quite cool actually in silver, and it's available for $250. That opens up a lot of budget for lenses down the line, and there's so many great deals also on micro four thirds lenses. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that later. Then we have the EM5 Mark II. Okay, it's just more camera, better to hold because it's slightly larger. Also has weather sealing, which I think is very important for a lot of people, and it's available for $350. Then we have the EM1 Mark I. It's a very professional body. It's extremely weather resistant, and the grip is very comfortable, unlike those other two cameras. Unlike the EM10 and EM5, I've personally played with them all in a store, and I think the EM1 is by far the most comfortable to hold. And it's $375. I think it's pretty good value. We've got the Panasonic G85. It's a great video camera for vlogging. The Canon M50 is another one to consider. Now the G85 I'm seeing for $500, which I think is a bit too much on the used market. I think often these cameras get discounted quite heavily during the holiday season. So this is a phenomenal camera, micro four thirds, 16 megapixels, maybe all the camera you'll ever need. For slightly cheaper than the G85, check out the Panasonic G7. Okay, from Sony, I'm not going to recommend any of their full frame stuff because I think the A7 series is not really worth buying until the A7 Mark III, with the exception of if you're purely adapting vintage manual focus lenses, then you can go for an A7 Mark I for about $500, which is a pretty killer deal. But for Sony, the Sony Alpha A6000 is a very good balance of price to performance. It's an APS-C camera. The ergonomics aren't for everyone, so make sure you play with one in store before you commit. But it's actually a very capable camera, often bundled with the 16-50, which is a decent kit lens. And anyway, by itself, the body, it's right now $320, which isn't bad at all. I mean, for the performance you get a great Sony sensor. Now, DSLRs, again, not for everybody. I still shoot with DSLRs. I find them a lot of fun. From Canon, the 40D is just, I have to mention it because it's going for like $80 these days if you find a deal on the classifieds website. It's weather sealed, magnesium construction, frame rate 1/8000 of a second. I own one of these. I picked one up used. Canon SL1 is a tiny, tiny little rebel camera that packs a big punch. A lot of performance in a compact package, $220, not bad at all. Other Canon cameras I didn't mention, I mean, there's so many good ones to choose from, you almost can't go wrong. I think we saw the T3 on the classifieds website, T3i, T4i, T5i. When it has an I at the end, I would go for one of those. Finally, the Canon 6D is actually a full frame camera, and it's available for $560 or thereabouts. The 6D is a very, very capable camera and should be very tempting if you're looking to get into full frame on a budget. I think that's one of the better deals in photography today. I would put the 6D together with a 24 to 105L lens, and you have a complete photojournalistic tool, or potentially a camera for portraits, weddings, just about anything. So it's a professional device. A Nikon D3300, good entry-level body to look for, very cheap these days. I see them for 200 bucks or less than that, and they actually meter and focus just fine with the latest AFP lenses, so that one's a good one. D7200 for $350 is just great value all around. Awesome camera, weather sealed, 2 card slots. Yeah, it's not a full frame sensor, it's a crop sensor, but the camera is brilliant. And D610, people are practically handing them out these days for 550 bucks. And it only goes up from there. I think there are also other great deals in the Nikon lineup like the D750 and the D810. But again, watch the Nikon video if you want to know about that. I've taken a look at all the Pentax cameras. I think one of the best deals is the Pentax K5 2S for 380 bucks. Now, I would only consider Pentax if you absolutely need that rugged, weatherproof construction and you're not really interested in video and you potentially have a source of Pentax lenses already. Maybe you already have a bunch of Pentax lenses you inherited. K3 Mark II, I think, is also another great camera. So I'm seeing these go for 600 bucks. Now, don't get me wrong, this is an absolutely phenomenal camera, but I would wait until there are cheaper deals. The downside with buying Pentax is there's so few listings that the prices can be all over the place. Anyway, I hope this video has been helpful, guys. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. But as always, guys, thanks for listening. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next week.